Hi, my name is Fatima Bhutto and I'm a writer. And I've come to the British Council Library in Lahore. I'm here for the LLF 2019 with my new novel, The Runaways, and I've come to tell you about my 5 favorite poets that are present in the library today. So Agha Shahid Ali is one of my favorite poets, and he's a Kashmiri poet. He's always described as a Kashmiri American poet. But he writes not only about Kashmir, he writes about, well, actually also about Lahore. And in the poem, he asks, of what do I sing and not sing? And Agha Shahid Ali writes beautifully about that in-between space of belonging and not belonging, of singing and not singing. And that's why he's one of my favorites. Another one of my favorite poets is Faiz Ahmed Faiz. And I love Faiz especially because Faiz was a great part of resistance to the dictatorship of General Ziaul Haq. And when Pakistan was being brutalized, resistance in this country was taking place not only on the streets, not only in the prisons, but it was also taking place in prose, in poetry. And to write a poem like Hum Dekhenge is a revolutionary act. To have it sung by Iqbal Bano in Lahore is a beautiful act of defiance. And so Faiz is a poet that's always with me wherever I go. Mahmoud Darwish is my third favorite poet. And Darwish was born in a village in Galilee that was eventually razed and occupied by the Israeli army. And so Darwish became a refugee in his own country. And he was imprisoned for reciting poetry, which shows you how dangerous poetry is. And he was also arrested for traveling within his own country from village to village without a permit. And so his poetry is infused with, again, resistance, with the ideas of justice, of unity. And I used part of a Darwish poem as the epigram for my new novel, The Runaways. I used a little bit from Rita and Her Rifle. So he's another one of my all-time favorites. Nizar Abani is my fourth favorite poet. And Nizar Abani is he was a Syrian poet. And he was from Damascus, which is a town that I love very much because I grew up there. And Nizar Abani also writes about how one lives in home, how one lives away from home. But he writes beautifully about the city of Damascus, about the jasmines, about the call to prayer, about the azan, and how beautifully it's sung in the city of my childhood. So he's a poem. I think he must be one of the first poets, actually, that I ever read, because growing up as a child, we studied him in first grade, second grade. So he might, in fact, be my first favorite poet. My last favorite poet comes from the other side of the world, Pablo Neruda, who was a diplomat, he was a political activist, he was a comrade of Salvador Allende, whose government was displaced again by a dictatorship, by General Pinochet. And Neruda's poetry is perhaps less political than the other ones I've mentioned, but they're beautiful nonetheless. And not only will you have his books here in the library, but if you have film in the library, do you have films? Yeah. Oh, you might even have a film called Il Postino. Do you? No. Well, then watch Il Postino, which is a beautiful film about, well, obviously it's a made-up film, about Neruda and a postman and love letters.